I'm going to get the view now of Executive Director of the Henry Jackson Society, Dr. Alan Mendoza. Alan, look, thank you very, very much. I suppose the wider question here for society as a whole is whether or not prisons are now being treated as jihadi training grounds.
Well, yes, because, of course, the problem isn't simply a prison problem. The problem of conversions and of, jihadism running rife in prisons could emerge at the other end when prisoners are released and go back into society and take their beliefs with them. And that's a big question. Does that radicalisation in prison then carry through to civilian life? And if it does, then we indeed have caused a lot of problems by allowing prisons to become these centres.
Yeah, indeed. And this is, we see all too often, is very, very hard to police against, mainly because it becomes incredibly difficult to tell when someone has actually been de-radicalised, as we've seen with things like the Fishmongers Hall attack, for example.
Yes, I mean, the biggest problem there was, of course, that, Usman Khan was able to persuade people he had been de-radicalised when, of course, he hadn't. He was just waiting for one opportunity in order to strike. That's a classic example of why you have to be very careful with the prison environment, why you have to make sure that radicalisation is not occurring. And should it occur, you've got to make absolutely certain that people who are coming out have been de-radicalised. And if not, that you're fully aware of who they are and that you can monitor them accordingly.
Now, what Vanessa Frake was saying there was that prison staff don't always lack the correct guidance on how to deal with this. There's a fear of being called racist. There's perhaps as well just a lack of knowledge or willpower in order to be able to deal with it, and that the problem is somewhat overwhelming. I just wonder, why do you think that there is, according to her anyway, a disproportionate number of hardline Muslims in prisons and dare I say it, in wider society as well?
Well, the Muslim prison population is about 3 times as a proportion the size of the Muslim proportion in society. So clearly something's going on there in terms of prisoners and the prison population. I think the danger is that at the top end, you've got some very dangerous people who've obviously been in jail for terrorism offences, and they're radicalised hardcore. Some of them will have been there because their bombs didn't blow themselves to oblivion, basically. So when you have people like that, as it were, being the gang leaders, being the people who are the alphas in prison, obviously that's a very dangerous sort of place to be, and it can cascade down. I note, for example, Steve Gallant speaks of there's a tail effect on this from Category A prisons even into Category B prisons just because of the numbers that are happening here. So something's going badly wrong here, and it needs to be addressed and looked at to make sure that this does not propagate further.